couple weeks ago, you launched an audit into the state's medical cannabis program. Walk me through what caught your attention about the program's rollout. Why did you make the decision to launch this audit?
Sure, that's a great question. So a lot of what we do is based on tips that we receive from the public, and sometimes we get it from the news media. So WHAS, Louisville Public Radio, they were some of the first, you all were some of the first to contact us and say, hey, I think there's a legitimate issue here. And we take that seriously when we get reporters coming in, because obviously you all are digging deep, you're doing work. You don't want to do a news story unless you feel like there's something reliable to go on. So when we get something from reporters, that is a pretty high threshold that we've just met. Okay, there's something serious going on here. Even then, we still waited to make sure if it's something that's worthwhile to look into. And we began to receive a lot of phone calls from farmers, from people who want to be cultivators, processors, dispensaries, a variety of people all over the Commonwealth saying that they felt like there was an issue. And like I said, a lot of what I do is based on tips. The public comes to me, and if there's a high volume of something, if there's people who seem to be very reliable, such as news reporters, media outlets, then there's a greater chance that it's worth the time to look into it.
So you can confirm that WHAS 11 reporting contributed to this investigation?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you were among the first, perhaps even the very first, to reach out to us and say, there seems to be a real issue here. Are you doing an audit? And that was actually the original question, is are you doing an audit in this? And at that point in time, we really hadn't really looked into it very much at all. So you all were the ones that brought it to our attention that there seems to be something that's worth looking at.
What about this instance of Kentucky Alternative Care? That's a story that we ran just a couple months ago. Someone on their staff described using 20 different LLCs to submit 20 different applications. Did that play a role in piquing your interest in doing an investigation into this?
Absolutely. So there were certain patterns of tips that we received, and one of them is app stacking, which you've just referred to. That's application stacking. Creating a lot of LLCs and applying multiple times to be able to get your name in there for the lottery. And the reason why that's a problem is because there's actually a reg that prohibits application stacking. It's supposed to be as fair as it can be. The idea is that it gives Kentuckians a fair shot, so it's not always just dominated by out-of-state large cannabis organizations that have a lot of money to put into it. It favors the little guy, so to speak, because it's fair. It's across-the-board fair. Everybody's got a shot at getting a winning application. So that was a very common tip that we heard. People are creating multiple businesses. They're one business, but they're creating sort of fictitious businesses, as you will. They're creating all these other ones, but really it's one business. So that was an issue. And another one is vertical integration, and that's what we kept hearing about a lot. So to kind of break that down for people, there are different licensees for the whole process. So it's trying to prevent a monopoly. You're spreading the responsibility and opportunities for Kentuckians by dividing it up. So you've got cultivators, you've got processors, you've got dispensaries. Those are the big three ones. And the idea was you wouldn't have one business that's dominating all three, and that's why this is divided up that way. And it's not supposed to happen that you can vertically integrate. There's even some areas where it's blocked out, so you shouldn't be able to do that. But we know that is happening. That's one of the things that we kept hearing tips about. There's at least one business that we know that's gotten a vertical integration. And they also had 350 LLCs that they created. So they have the app stacking problem and the vertical integration. So all of this, and I'm careful not to talk because we haven't finished the audit yet. We're looking at it right now. This is all preliminary information that is publicly available. And these are the reasons why we decided it's time to look at an audit. This is just beginning. Whenever you begin something, you want to do it right. And Kentuckians were concerned that they weren't giving a fair shot. And so we want to make sure, hey, we're going to look at it. We're going to be fair. We're going to be reasonable. We're going to analyze it. And then we're going to reveal information to the public and then go from there.
Well, it sounds like you already found stuff.
Yeah, well, so we're very careful before we begin an audit to make sure there's something worthwhile looking into. And, I get tips, people will get mad at an elected official or mad at their neighbor or whatever, and so I'll get tips all the time. And we take every tip with a grain of salt because we want to make sure if we're looking at something, there's something there. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's always going to be what's reported to you, but you take your time about something, you wait and you use good judgment to see, is this something that's worthwhile looking into? And we had enough information that it showed this is worth looking into. That's my job. I'm the auditor. I look into things when there's something that's worth looking into.
What could an outcome look like? I'll give you an example. In the case of Kentucky Alternative Care, if they're found in violation of one of those app stacking regulations, are they threatening to, or is there a threat that they might lose their license?
Well, that's a great question. And I don't want to weigh in too much about what the outcomes are going to be yet, because we're still very preliminary, still early processes. And one of the things that I do is I find out what's really going on. I make it available to the public. I make it available to lawmakers. And sometimes there's recommendations about this is what needs to be done to fix whatever the problem is. But at the end of the day, usually enforcement does not fall under me. It falls under somebody else.
I think the question everyone wants to know is, will this audit freeze, pause, or create any issues with the rollout of the cannabis program?
So that's a great question. No, my goal is not to slow anything down, and I don't see any reason why it should slow anything down. We just want to find out, is this fair? Is this happening the way that it's supposed to? There have been numerous delays from the very beginning. I think the governor said it was going to be available in January, and then there was a pushback of, say, first quarter of 2025. And now there's sort of an understanding that it's going to be summer or fall. It may be pushed back again. I don't know. I'm not in charge of those timelines. But the governor has pushed back those timelines for the public several times already. So it's not my goal to slow anything down. And I don't see any reason why us looking into things should slow anything down. We're just going to make the process better and make sure things are fair.
So these ribbon cuttings across the state, those can commence during this audit?
Yes. I don't want to slow anything down, keep things moving. My job is just to make sure everything is fair and everything's being done the right way.
How long can an audit take? When do you expect to have a decision?
Well, that's always the question. And, I'm always eager to have results quickly. So we're always pushing, we're trying to be fast. But I have learned, don't give a deadline, because if you do, then you've got an expectation for it, because you never know where something's going to go. We sort of like follow the leads when we're auditing, when we're investigating. And you may think, okay, this is a simple issue, this is a small issue, so we can knock this out in 6 weeks or something like that. But then as you dig into it, you find out that there's more and it's deeper. So I have learned to be cautious about timelines. And so I'm not going to give a timeline, but I will say, rest assured we're going to be as quick as we possibly can. It is not our intention to slow anything down. I don't believe anything that we're doing is going to slow anything down. We're just trying to make sure everything's being done right.
Area of concern that I heard from some applicants is they were unaware of what their lottery number was when the lottery was streamed live on TV. Is that something you're looking into?
That's a great question. We are looking at that. That's a recurring thing that we heard too, is that there was a lot of confusion about what their number was, because you had an application number, and then and those were removed from applications somewhat to make it like a blind lottery, which is good, is what you want. But it also created a lot of confusion of, well, who did get awarded an application? So that is part of the audit as well, just figuring out, did this process work? Can it be done better? What can we learn from this? Is this the fairest way to do this?
I know you said that you don't necessarily control what enforcement or next steps would look like after an audit. Report has gone public, but what would outcomes look like for this program for applicants? Could more licenses open up? Could licenses be withdrawn? Who's held accountable in these situations?
Right, that's a great question. So, as far as accountability and outcomes, we're going to have to wait until the audit is done, because then I don't want to speak too early. We have to make sure that we investigate, we look into things, and we find out what are the findings, if any. What are the recommendations, if any? How do we improve this for the future? All of that is done at the end of the process, once we've done all the work and we figure out, because we want to be fair. We want to be as fair and as honest, as accurate as possible. So I don't want to make any comments before we're ready for that kind of a thing. But I will say it is important for Kentuckians across the board to have a fair shot at this. If the General Assembly says this is something that Kentucky is going to pursue, then we want this to be as fair and as available to Kentucky farmers as it's supposed to be. So this is looking out for all of those Kentucky farmers who are trying to get in there, the processors, the dispensaries, Kentucky businesses, making sure that this is fair across the board and it's available in the timeline that it's supposed to be.
Do you believe that those local folks have been kicked out by multi-state operations?
Well, that's what I hear. That's what I hear all the time. So we're going to look into it. There is a pretty heavy presence of out-of-state, everything, out-of-state cultivators, processors, dispensaries. There are no Kentucky farmers who are given a cultivator license. There's just a very small handful of ones who've been given a processor license, very, very small, like under one hand. So those numbers are very small, and that's one of the reasons why we want to look into it, because numbers don't lie. You find out what the numbers are, and then you look into it.
Speaking of numbers, you said that you had some data for me.
So, for example, the Dark Horse Cannabis, that's an out-of-state Arkansas big cannabis organization, and they're the ones that had 350 applications that they created LLCs for all these apps. And they're not the only ones to have done that, but it's a good example of it's an out-of-state, creating a lot of LLCs so that way they could stack the odds, so to speak, and have a greater chance of getting these. So they did it, and they've also vertically processed. So they have, every step of the way, they have won licenses. And this is a big deal because there's very few licenses that have been awarded at this point, very, very few. I think it's 16 cultivators, I think it's 10 processors, and less than 50 of the dispensaries. So these are small numbers, and if you're awarding it to large, out-of-state, non-Kentucky organizations, it means that the process is going to be slower to begin with, because they're going to have to buy land, they're going to have to grow the product, they're going to have to set up shop, so to speak, in Kentucky. And if you're awarding it to Kentuckians, it's faster because they're already here. They probably already have a farm, they probably already have a business, they have something in place. So there's all kinds of reasons to be a little bit concerned when you have large. There's the fairness issue. Are you letting Kentuckians have a good shot at it? The little guy, has he gotten a shot at it? But there's also the slowness of it, because if you're out of state, it's inevitably going to slow it down.
The last thing we heard from Governor Andy Beshear was that he believes his program is fair, transparent, and broadcast on TV. What's your response to that?
Well, and that's great. I always thought for him is that he should be willing to have an audit. And he now has said she can look whatever she wants to. But if you really feel confident in the process, you believe it's fair and transparent and on TV, then you should not be worried at all about an audit. In fact, that should be something that you welcome, because it's going to pass and it's going to be in good shape. So my response is always to, when somebody says, hey, you don't need an audit, it's all good, great. Well, then let us show everybody, we can verify that it's good, let us do that. So that's always my response when anybody says, hey, you don't need to do this. Okay, if we don't need to do this, then it should be an easy audit.
What's your response to Kentuckians who might believe that this is a partisan process by party lines?
Yeah, and that always is a frustrating thing when people say that, because my job is the auditor. My job is to make sure that we follow the law, that Kentuckians are looked after, and most of what I do is based on tips. So, you all came to us and you indicated, hey, there seems to be an issue here. Members of the public came to us, and it's only after a long process, because we weren't quick to jump on this. We could have jumped on this in January. But we did our due diligence to look at this and see, hey, is this something we're supposed to look at? I take an oath when I become the auditor. I took an oath last year that I will uphold the laws of the Commonwealth and the United States. I will uphold the law, and I will do my job as auditor. And my job as auditor is to look at what the government is doing and make sure we're doing it right. It's not partisan. It is what I'm supposed to do with my job. There are tips we get that are truly partisan, and there are many. If I were to walk you through all the ones I get that go after Governor Beshear or Senate President Robert Stivers, we get those, and I'm not quick to act on those. We make sure that if we're getting a tip, that it is based on something that is real, and we're going to do the work to make sure Kentuckians know what's going on.
How do you envision the future of cannabis in Kentucky?
Well, that's probably outside of my purview, because my job is just to make sure the law is followed. So this is an industry that I am well versed in the future of it. That's not my job. My job is to make sure that the law is followed, that the application process is fair, that we're doing things the right way. I don't have a vested interest in the outcomes of things other than following the law. Many of the information we've received on this has come from tips, and it's usually farmers. It's usually small businesses all across Kentucky, and I do think that they feel like that they don't have confidence in the system at this point in time. So that's why I've stepped in. Hopefully that reassures people that there are other eyes looking at this, and I'm going to make sure that this process was and will be for the future fair, and that we're doing it right. So for any small town farmers, small Kentucky businesses or medium size, whatever your role is, or there aren't any large ones in Kentucky, but maybe there will be at some point. Whatever your role is, it's my job to help you have confidence that the law is followed, and that the process is fair, and that you're not being cheated on anything, but that everything is happening up and up, and you can rely on that.
You may have already answered this, but who will dictate what happens after audit results?
So this is the way audits always work. I look into audits, I investigate, and I reveal information to the public and to elected officials and the people who are responsible. So my job is to, what are the facts? What's going on? What has happened? And then I often make recommendations. If there are problems, what can be done to fix those problems? It's then up to the responsible parties to then fix those problems. But I'm sort of like the teacher almost, who comes in and will say, okay, this is why you got this grade, this is how you could fix this grade, now you can fix the grade.
So in this case, would it be the Cabinet for Health and Family Services or
CHFS
Governor Beshear's office?
Yeah, CHFS is definitely a big part of this. That falls under Governor Beshear, so his administration, all the relevant parties. If there are findings that are made and if there are recommendations, they would be the responsible parties to address whatever needs to be addressed.
Why should the public care about this?
Sure. Well, that is a great question. So I believe in following the law, and I believe in fairness, and I think most Kentuckians feel that way too. So the General Assembly made the decision to make medical marijuana available for a variety of reasons. You have vets that come in with PTSD, there's seizures, there are other issues, and the General Assembly said this is something that Kentucky is going to make available to people who have these really serious conditions. And I think the understanding was, okay, once that decision is made, then it will be fair across the board who gets to cultivate it, who gets to process it, and who gets to dispense it. I have to make sure it is fair. It is, everyone is given a shot to participate in producing this product that's supposed to help people who are in need. And then the next part of it is to do it quickly. You don't want it to be slow, and you don't want to wait for these things to develop. If you've got out-of-state companies coming in, it's going to slow it down. So my job is to make sure that what the General Assembly said wanted to be done to help these people that are in need, that it's done quickly.